Welcome to another video, Wilderness Survival and Defense. This is going to be the first in a long series of videos on night vision. This first video is going to be fairly basic with fundamental concepts, and as we progress into future videos, I hope to cover more advanced content. Tonight, me and a friend are going to be running through a very basic night vision course just to get a little bit of practice and to build on some fundamental skills. The course outline is just going to discuss just night vision, some of its pros and cons, what types of situations and environments it's most useful in, and then we'll get into the gear setup, which is just fitting the helmet, getting the goggles adjusted, for my friend's face and just the size of his head. It's always different for everyone. Function testing a lot of the gear. That also includes a lot of the optics, lasers, and lights that are on the rifle that he's using. This rifle's a 300 blackout, shooting subsonic. And that works just fine because we're just doing some close range stuff tonight. We also have another rifle that can certainly do long range, along with the Knight's Armament clip-on, night vision sight to mount in front of the ACOG, but we're just going to keep it basic tonight. So after we gear up and function test some things, we're just going to cover some basic functional type movements. And at first, these are going to be non-shooting exercises. Just kind of orienteering around some difficult terrain, doing a few different positions, body positions to make sure that the helmet's fit and it's good to go. And really just trying to do a lot of the things that would normally be done in the day, trying to do them under night vision. A few things that's hard with night vision is that depth perception. Although these high resolution dual tube night vision goggles that we'll be using is going to make that a lot easier, and that helps a lot with safety. After doing some of the functional movements and just getting comfortable with them, then we are going to move into some shooting drills. And those will be weapons handling and also just a lot of the same weapons manipulation procedures, as well as reloading at night. A lot of things that are done during the day are done a little bit differently at night. Some of the considerations for that is trying to do things quieter, because we're only wearing night vision for the most part because we don't want to use white lights. And that's just to kind of stay undetected for many reasons, whether people are hunting or using them for self-defense, or if they're, U.S. military or law enforcement. And I think that a lot of the skills covered here will lend very well to multiple users, because this is fundamental stuff. Getting more into the advanced stuff later, a lot of the skills are sort of specific to different users. One of the biggest users of night vision, as well as thermals, are the hog hunters. And I think that kind of deserves its own video, so I'm going to hold off on that one and cover that a little bit later. But these fundamental skills will help people build good safety practices when using their night vision on hog hunts. And then later in the course, after doing some weapons handling, weapons manipulation, we'll start off with some dry fire drills, move into some live fire to help build some recoil control techniques, to help build accuracy and speed. And then finally, we'll just wrap it up with a little FTX scenario, which challenges my friend here to utilize all those skills that he's learned throughout the night in one single simulated scenario to locate targets, identify them as friend or foe, and effectively engage them while being safe the entire time. There'll be a little bit of decision making and some speed and accuracy, and it'll build upon all the skills, weapon manipulation and orienteering around some difficult rocky terrain as well. And then finally, we'll have a debrief of the course, and we can kind of critique the course, note down some improvements, and share with y'all what we found challenging or especially rewarding during the course, to share some of that knowledge with you so that any night vision shooting that you do is both safer and more effective for the time that you're able to put into it. So to begin the course, I like to just, talk with everybody about the pros and cons of night vision. Now, night vision isn't going to give you the same resolution as your eyes can see during the day. So even a flashlight at night will give you much better resolution if you're looking at things close up. If you're trying to look beyond a couple 100 meters, a flashlight beam just can't reach that far, especially for a handheld flashlight, to give you the detail to see better than night vision. So in those situations, the night vision is going to serve you better. But it brings to mind another question, for if you only need to look out, maybe 100 or 200 yards because you're in thick brush, or even closer, why even use night vision? And I think that one of the reasons here is because you're doing something where you just don't want to be seen. Before we get the night vision fitted, we'll go ahead and function test these goggles. And I just want to show you some of the common features of them. This goggle style is dual tube. They're commercially available. The seller has their own housing that they use, but they're using a lot of standard military components like the on-off controls, and also some of the focus lenses and the tubes too. I'm sure they're probably just standard PVS 14 tubes. The tubes are well matched so that each eye has comparable resolution, and the alignment's good with the tubes as well. That's what you need from a quality dual tube night vision housing and overall setup. Now a couple of the features on them. The on-off button here, we're not going to turn them on right now, but the first one's going to turn them on, and then they stay on constantly. If you rotate that again, it's going to they'll still stay on, but when you flip them up, they turn off. That's to help the enemy avoid detecting you when the night vision's flipped up and they can see the light coming out of it. You rotate them again, and this IR illuminator comes on. This is where the battery housing is. It's important to use good quality batteries, lithium preferably. I also like to put some, lithium grease, O-ring grease on the O-ring of the battery housing. It makes it easy to take the cap on and off and help keeps the water out. This control right here is a gain knob. The gain knob is important because generally, you want to keep the gain pretty low. If not, it's just giving you more light than you need. It's kind of blinding you. And if you ever do need to see outside of the night vision using your natural vision, it just makes it harder to see in the dark without night vision because you're almost a little blinded by excess light that you didn't need from that gain knob. Now there's some other situations where, tactical situations where you want to have the gain at different levels for different reasons. But generally, run the gain pretty low. Now here you can focus these for the different distance. Right now they're focused at infinity. That covers most of the common features on these night vision goggles. Next, we're going to get into fitting the night vision goggles. So the first thing the shooter is going to do is hold the night vision up to his face and adjust them like binoculars to get the distance between his eyes correct. And you can see him moving those in and out. He's basically just going to hold him up to his face while he does this and make sure that the distance is correct. And after he does that, he's going to turn those eyepieces closest to his eyes. He's going to keep one eye open and the other one closed and just make sure that the image appears focused. And then he's going to do the next eye like that. If need be, he can adjust the focus to whatever his prescription might be, or his eye prescription if they're not exactly 20/20. And you may also need to kind of tweak the that outside focus ring for distance if that's not set for infinity. But he's looking at something very far off to get that focus just perfect, something that'll give him a little bit of detail, like maybe some top of a tree with some branches off in the distance, you know, 50 yards or further. And that sets him for his face. At the same time, we'll test the IR illuminator, and then just make sure everything works. And then we'll get ready to mount him to the helmet. All right, let's talk about this mount a little bit. This is a Wilcox G24 mount. That's one of the best. It gives you a wide range of adjustments, and it's a very solid mount. The way this mount differs from many of the older ones is that when you want to flip the night vision up and down, you just don't do it manually by forcing the night vision up and down. You have to depress, I guess what could be described as a little button. The little button is right here, and it just pushes in, as you can see, and the night vision flips right down on its own. It's important not to try to cam the night vision down with this mount. When you're ready to raise the night vision, just depress the button again, and it'll raise right back up. Now it's important, while searching for that button, not to press this or manipulate this switch, because that can release the night vision. And that brings another good point. The night vision includes a retention cable on it, which can be attached right here to this. There's different ways of doing it. Some of the quick release mechanisms are nice. Now, a few ways to adjust this mount is this first button here. This will release the night vision for on-off. You can raise and lower the mount by loosening this. You can lower it all the way down, and you can raise it. You can also tilt the night vision up and down with this control right here. So that tilting it down, tilting it back up. And then you can adjust the spacing of the night vision more forward or back by utilizing these two buttons right here, and this will let you move this piece forward or back. It's a little hard to do, but anybody wearing eye protection or gas masks, that'll be necessary to move it more forward so night vision isn't touching your face. Along with that, night vision, eye caps that have some rubber so they don't scratch the lenses is important too. So those are the adjustments for the Wilcox G24 mount. It's one of the best. Next, we'll get the night vision mounted up, and the shooter will be able to adjust the mount on his own without taking the helmet off, and just by doing it by feel. He doesn't have to turn on his white light and look at anything and take the helmet off. He can, while the helmet's on, he can do it by feel and get it adjusted properly. I'd like to cover real quick some of the other aspects of the helmet. What types of optics and lights are on it. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of times it's good to, do certain things with white light. That might be working on some equipment or doing some other administrative tasks and such. Or just if the situation doesn't require you to be stealth that particular time, then certainly use white light. You can get a lot of tasks done a lot faster and better just by using white light. So this first one, this is just a simple white light for doing work. It has a low white light setting, bright white light, has a little red light to help you preserve your night vision, but it's pretty dim. It's also got an IR light. Let's take a look at the other side. So on this side, this light, this N-Force, it's got a relatively small form factor, and this one also switches between white light and infrared light. Right now I've got it set for infrared, and the other light is also programmed, so when you go through the programming setting, it's going to start off on infrared. That's important because you basically, when you first turn on the light, you want to make sure that it's not white if you do need to be stealth. So by default, they start on IR, and then as you cycle them through, you can switch them to white light. This one switches to white light simply just by rotating this knob. So it's a very good option to have a brighter light on the helmet if you need. And I like to run this bright light on the left side of the helmet, just so when your rifle's shouldered, it's not The light isn't being blocked by any optics, and it's not being reflected back at you. Now on the top, we have a Hellstar strobe. There's different models of Hellstar strobes. This one's also set to the IR setting to start with. I went ahead and turned it on, but you notice you can't see anything because it is on IR. Let's go ahead and change it to visible here. Now you can see it. Now there's 2 visible settings, 2 IR settings. Let's start with, this is the first visible setting. Now there's a super bright visible setting. That gives you some extra distance to see somebody out further. You know, this helps prevent fratricide, so you can see your teammates. And the IR settings, if I flip this up, that moves it to IR. This will be the bright IR. That'll be the dim IR. That'll be off. But again, we're going to go ahead and leave it on the IR setting as off. And now the problem with those being super bright is that another teammate who has night vision, when these things are on the bright IR setting, it's throwing out too much illumination and it makes it hard for anybody else to see. So when you're working with teammates, we're working indoors, you don't need that super bright IR setting. But when you're very distant from your teammate and you need that extra brightness just to be able to see everybody, certainly use that extra bright IR setting. Now this helmet is set up for the newer PVS 31 model, so it's got a battery pack. The counterweight in the back, I like to use heavy 9mm bullets as the counterweight, so you got some extra ammo back there if you need them. It's also got some IR reflective patches. You can also use IR reflective patches on the side Velcro here as well. And that just, for anybody using, you know, active IR light, these patches are going to light right up. And the shapes of them are pretty unique. So you can be able to know that that's one of your team members. This helmet also has Ear Pro. The Ear Pro, Supreme Pro X by MSA. There's a lot of good types of Ear Pro. Some that integrate comms, some that don't. It's important for the full enclosed ear protection that they do have a microphone that amplifies the noise with volume adjustment, and that they be able to fit within the helmet. Not all of them do. There's different mounts, very specialized, to make these more premium types of ear protection fit. So that can definitely get very expensive, but it's well worth it. Otherwise, just using earbuds is always a good option too. All right, let's talk about the rifle a little bit. This is a pretty standard rifle, you know. One of the disadvantages of this 300 Blackout is the limited range, but that's not really so much of a disadvantage for nighttime shooting. Yes, I can get tracers. The 300 Blackout normally has a problem with accuracy at distance, which really isn't so much accuracy, but the ability of the sight to account for the extreme bullet drop. I think the accuracy is good. Again, the problem is the disadvantage for the sight, which is normally a red dot or something like that, non-magnified with a simple dot, to be able to account for that bullet drop, which happens at very close distances, especially with subsonic ammo. That's why it's hard to hit targets. When you're using tracers, it's not a problem. You know, you can walk the tracers right onto target. Rapid firing with tracers, you can keep a very tight shot group because the recoil is so low. The recoil with subsonic ammo is even lower. Now let's just talk about the rifle setup for night shooting. This is probably something that I could cover in a recce rifle video, but for those of you who can't immediately afford to buy all this stuff, I would suggest first just get a good standard AR-15. You don't really need the suppressor. Sometimes the suppressor brings extra complications as well as cost. So just get a standard, good quality AR-15. I wouldn't recommend building one and going with wacky parts or some part that is a lightweight bolt or a different spring pressure or some kind of, you know, super high-speed competition thing. Just buy a decent quality AR-15 at a reasonable price that's built, and you know that the manufacturer can ensure reliability across a wide range of ammunition. BCM, for example, as well as many others, can do that. And if you try to build it yourself and put in weird parts, you don't know if they're compatible, it might not work with all types of ammunition. The next thing that I would suggest is get a decent optic. Low magnification is fine. You know, simple red dot. There's a lot of good options out there. If you can afford a Neotech, get it too, because that's probably one of the best night vision sights. Next would be a decent light. Streamlight makes good ones, so does Surefire. I tend to favor the Surefire. Now even these small little lights, they put out quite a bit of brightness. And they also have different beam patterns, so make sure that you get an idea of the distance they put out as well as the beam pattern, how much peripheral light they're going to throw. Surefire does advertise that on their boxes. If you really need the extra durability, Surefire and its various switch options might serve you a little better, especially when you get into advanced lasers. Now the next thing that would be most important is tracer ammunition. A lot of people overlook the value of tracer ammunition. They just haven't used it. Tracer ammunition makes a rifle accurate at long distances at night and helps you put fire onto moving targets. Some of the most fundamental needs. But everybody overlooks tracers, and luckily it's still available. 90% of my ammo is tracer ammunition across the few different types of cartridges I shoot. When I evaluate whether I want to buy a gun, I want to know if I can get tracer ammunition in that cartridge. Now the next accessory to buy would be a good laser unit. This is a D-Ball A3. It does visible laser, IR laser, and IR illuminator. The IR illuminator on it isn't going to be great because this is a civilian-powered IR illuminator. Now the IR laser on a civilian-powered unit like this will be fine. The IR laser is good at low power, but that illuminator, you really need a high-power device. Now, there's other options as well. Some of the Surefire Vampire lights. I think B. Myers is also making a standalone light head for an illuminator. It's kind of pricey, of course, but I think it's also a very good option. You know, for the civilian market, we're going to be limited in what kind of devices we can get. For law enforcement, they've got some ways to get some of the high-power laser illuminators in IR, which is going to help them a lot. Now, there's other features on this rifle, which we can certainly cover. I didn't mention the sling, but that's obviously the first thing you need when getting the rifle too, and just getting sights for it. I like to run rifles with collapsible stocks. I'm not going to get into that too much right now. We'll cover that later in the video, but there are definitely advantages when shooting at night to using a collapsible stock. Now, we'll also get into passive and active aiming techniques, as well as many other things a little bit later once we start shooting. Thank you for watching part 1 of the basic night vision course video. Please watch parts 2 and 3, as well as additional advanced night vision shooting videos that will be released in the future.